The news headlines. On Gold FM.
Good evening, I'm Atik Rumi, bringing you the news on Gold FM. In your headlines, any elected Iranian supreme leader is a target for elimination, vows Israel. Ayatollah Khamenei's funeral postponed. We are looking at a possible world war, insists expert.
It all depends on the resilience of the Iranian people.
Speculation rife after Iranian warship sinks off Sri Lanka. Sri Lankan commences limited flight operations to the Middle East. Bill to repeal Chief of Defence Staff Act approved. In your sports news, South Africa and New Zealand lock horns in World Cup semi-final tonight.
The top story on Gold FM.
Israel's Defense Minister Israel Katz issued a stark warning today, stating that any individual chosen to succeed the late Ayatollah Ali Khamenei will become a primary target for assassination. This declaration follows the death of the previous supreme leader in a recent joint strike by Israeli and American forces. In an ex-post, Katz asserted that every leader appointed by the Iranian administration to continue plans against Israel or its allies remains a target for elimination, regardless of their identity or location. The warning coincides with reports that Iran's Assembly of Experts is moving to appoint a successor amidst a 5-day conflict that now spans multiple fronts. Meanwhile, foreign media reported that the state funeral for Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has been postponed. The 3-day funeral was due to begin today. However, reports suggest that organizers have said that the ceremony will be postponed until there is infrastructure in place. No date for when the ceremony will take place has been announced. The Israeli military confirms it carried out broad-scale strikes across Tehran today, including hits on government buildings and sites linked to the clerical leadership in the holy city of Qom. In the skies above the Iranian capital, an Israeli F-35 jet reportedly shot down a manned Iranian fighter aircraft, marking a significant escalation in direct air combat. US-based human rights activist news agency says that at least 1,097 civilians have been killed there since the attacks began on Saturday. Meanwhile, the conflict spreads further into neighboring territories. In Lebanon, the Israeli military ordered residents south of the Litani River to evacuate immediately, citing upcoming operations against Hezbollah positions. Reports indicate that residential complexes sustained damage in recent aerial bombardments. Simultaneously, Iran launched a fresh barrage of ballistic missiles and drones across the Persian Gulf. Authorities in the United Arab Emirates and Qatar confirmed the interception of numerous projectiles, though some fell within their borders. As the humanitarian toll rises, with hundreds reported dead in Iran and dozens in Lebanon, international diplomatic efforts appear stalled. In the meantime, Turkey's defense ministry said that NATO air defenses have destroyed an Iranian missile heading towards Turkish airspace. In a statement originally in Turkish, the defense ministry says there are no casualties or injuries. It says the missile was detected passing through Iraqi and Syrian airspace and heading towards Turkish airspace. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign minister Abbas Araghchi accused US President Donald Trump of bombing the negotiating table out of spite. In a post on social media, he said, quote, "When complex nuclear negotiations are treated like a real estate transaction, and when big lies cloud realities, unrealistic expectations can never be met," unquote. He said that the outcome is bombing the negotiation table out of spite. Meanwhile, a geopolitical analyst explained what could be the real reasons for the United States in attacking Iran along with Israel. Speaking to us, Nilanthan Nirudhan, Executive Director of the Center for Law and Security Studies, noted a few, with one such being the pressure from the Gulf states.
while it is true that Iran does not pose a direct threat to the United States mainland itself, the United States has been pressured tremendously by both the Arabs and the Israelis to act against Iran in a very decisive way, because the GCC nations, the Gulf country nations, and Israel, both factions feel that Iran's leadership, if it nuclearizes, will come for them and therefore face a very, very existential threat. And if you speak to many of them, they now feel that they were right to have been suspicious of Iran, because the way that Iran has now lashed out against many of the other Arab nations there, these countries see it as a provocation. So regionally, it's the United States being urged by both its key partners to do something about regime change.
The US's intention to maintain the status of the largest global fossil fuel exporter was highlighted by Niruddhan as the second reason.
So the United States is currently the biggest oil and gas exporter to the world, and they want to make sure that all the major oil reserves in the world come under that strategic umbrella so that it can be sold in dollars, so that control whether these oil reserves are being sold to China in a time of war and things like that. One is securing interests around the world, particularly the natural gas and oil reserves around the world under one dominant dollar-based system. The second is that China is very, very heavily dependent on importing commodities. Even though only about 15 to 20% of China and Iran, that's still a lot. And the point is not to be able to squeeze China right now. The point is to be saying, we will control the Strait of Hormuz. We are in control. So Venezuela was about the same thing. It was about the Panama Canal and getting Latin American oil reserves under the dollar system. And similarly here, you already have the Gulf countries under the dollar system. You already have Canada under the dollar system.
When quizzed on the possibility of existing tensions developing into another world war, this is what he had to say.
The Iranian strategy right now is to hold on and to disrupt the Gulf economies as much as possible and hope that it will trigger a collapse of the American economy. So that's the basic Iranian strategy now. We will eventually start targeting Arab water desalination plants. We'll start making sure that food security and water security for the Arab countries becomes destabilized, and this will then lead to the American economy getting tanked, because the American economy, particularly industries like AI and all that, currently are very dependent on Gulf money coming in. The Americans, on the other hand, feel that Iran is not as resilient and that they can solve this by bombing the current leadership and the next wave and the next wave until a friendly regime comes in. So it all depends on the resilience of the Iranian people. If they are as resilient as they claim, then they will be able to hold on, which will trigger a collapse of the American economy eventually, which will trigger a third world war eventually. But if the Americans and the Israelis succeed, then it will just go back to business as usual, because it would just mean that now the whole of the Middle East comes under one strategic boss and they will all sell in dollars.
This is the local news on Gold FM.
Conjecture and speculation are rife after a number of sailors were rescued by the Sri Lanka Navy off the coast of Galle today. The incident happened 40 nautical miles off the island's coast, with the Navy confirming that 32 persons were rescued after receiving a distress call from the vessel. But things aren't clear-cut. Some foreign media reported that the Iranian vessel was a military one and that it was torpedoed. They went as far as to say that some 101 persons were missing, with 78 left injured. The Navy, together with the Air Force, held a media briefing to give clarity to the matter. However, it left many grey areas. The Navy did say that there were dead bodies at the scene. Navy spokesperson Commander Buddhika Sampath gave this explanation.
Today early morning, MRCC received a distress signal though it was beyond our waters, but it is within our search and rescue region. As we are a maritime nation, we are obliged to respond. We are the first responders as per the international obligation. So Navy swiftly coordinated with the Maritime Rescue Coordinating Center, and also we disseminate this information to the Sri Lanka Air Force and Coast Guard as well. And we launch and dispatch our craft with all the necessary rescue team and the necessary devices to render humanitarian assistance, and we reached up to that location and continue doing this search operation. So while doing search operation, we found people floating in the water and rescued them, and subsequently when we inquired them, we found that those people are belonging to the Iranian ship, and we understood that they need prompt medical attention, and we swiftly transferred them to the Karapitiya Teaching Hospital. So we still continue in the search and rescue operation in that particular area with the calculation of weather condition and the sea maritime related calculation, and we are continuing the search and rescue operation in that particular area. And also we have found some dead bodies, and we suspect these bodies are belongs to the same ship because we found these things in the particular search and rescue area.
He also insisted that the distressed ship wasn't even visible.
When they reached up to that place, we could not find the ship, but we found slight oil patch and floating life raft in that particular area, and we started doing searching survivors in that particular area because we understood that the survivors should be in the water.
The Navy also claimed that there weren't any other ships in the vicinity of the scene. That prompted this question and response.
So does that mean the ship was away from the normal shipping channel? Because we have thousands of ships traversing around.
Okay.
They stick to a certain corridor.
Maybe due to the time of that incident, it may had happened that we have sighted only the while we reaching on that particular area, we have sighted none in that particular area because of the maybe the time of that incident and going to the.
There was also speculation that the Iranian vessel was awaiting permission for the port call in Sri Lanka.
Just want to clear the air about this allegation where that this Iranian naval vessel was waiting to call port in Sri Lanka. Has that happened, or is this just speculation?
So my focus is to give the updates on the rescue mission. So right now we are doing rescue mission effectively. So later on we can go into further details. So as of international obligations and the provisions and the regulations and the conventions, we are doing our part and we are attending search and rescue operation because that incident had happened within our search and rescue area.
Sri Lankan Airlines resumed flight operations to Middle Eastern destinations today following a brief suspension for security compliance. The national carrier confirmed that flight UL231 from Colombo to Dubai operated, and the return flight UL232 from Dubai to Colombo will remain scheduled to depart as planned. Officials stated that these maneuvers follow strict adherence to safety protocols aimed at ensuring passenger security amidst regional tensions. Against this backdrop of ongoing Middle East conflict, Sri Lanka is losing roughly $10 to $12 million of revenue every week as tourist arrivals drop sharply. This was said by Deputy Minister of Tourism Ruwan Ranasinghe. The Fort Magistrate said today that the CID failed to report facts to the court regarding former intelligence chief Suresh Saleh. The suspect remains in detention under the Prevention of Terrorism Act for ongoing questioning. The magistrate inquired from CID officers following a motion filed by lawyers who confirmed that no formal report reached the court. The Cabinet authorised the publication of a bill in the Government Gazette to repeal the Chief of Defence Staff Act No. 35 of 2009. The draft bill received clearance from the Attorney General following initial approval in February last year.
Now for some news in brief.
A person who sustained serious injuries in a motorcycle crash on Kotta Road, Burella, last night passed away while receiving treatment at the Colombo National Hospital.
The business news on Gold FM.
The all-share price index of the Colombo Stock Exchange closed green today after gaining 134.03 points to close at 22,577.41. The S&P SL20 index also gained 44.01 points to close at 6,357.66. Total market turnover was 4.6 billion rupees.
International news on Gold FM.
Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent announced that US President Donald Trump will likely increase universal tariffs from 10 to 15% sometime this week. Speaking to foreign media, Bessent confirmed the timeline for the planned hike as part of the administration's ongoing trade strategy. The move follows the initial implementation of broad trade levies earlier in the term.
Entertainment news on Gold FM.
Sri Lankan-born a cappella artist Charith Piris, who performs as Hachoja, won Best Electronic Experimental Video and Best Indie Video at the A Cappella Video Awards in Los Angeles for his music video Mind Gog. In addition to his 2 wins, Mind Gog received 6 other nominations and secured second place in 4 further categories.
Sports news on Gold FM.
The first semi-final of the ICC T20 World Cup between South Africa and New Zealand is set to kick off at 7 p.m. today at Eden Gardens. New Zealand won the toss and elected to field first. That's it for the news. I'm Atik.